Jake Morrison sat at his kitchen table, staring at the pile of bills in front of him. The coffee in his mug had gone cold an hour ago, but he kept taking sips anyway. Being a single dad was hard enough without trying to figure out alien tax forms for the new interspecies housing programs. 3 years had passed since first contact with the Vorthak. 3 years since everything changed. Jake still remembered watching the news that day, seeing the massive ships appear in Earth's sky. Everyone thought it was the end of the world. Instead, it turned out to be just the beginning of a very complicated new chapter. The Vorthak were peaceful. They came with gifts of technology and offers of friendship. They wanted to learn about humans, and they wanted humans to learn about them. Soon, there were exchange programs, trade agreements, and cultural centers popping up in every major city. Jake's hometown of Denver had gotten one of the first cultural centers. It was a big, shiny building downtown where humans and Vorthak could meet safely. There were rules, of course, lots of rules. The Galactic Council insisted on them. Dad? Jake looked up from his bills. His 17-year-old son Tyler stood in the doorway, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. The kid looked nervous, which wasn't like him. Tyler was usually confident, always ready with a joke or a smart comment. "Yeah, buddy, what's up?" Tyler walked into the kitchen and sat down across from Jake. He picked up a pen from the table and started clicking it. "Click, click, click. I need to ask you something," Tyler said. "And it's kind of weird." Jake leaned back in his chair. "Okay, shoot. You know how there are those exchange students at school? The Vorthak kids?" "Sure." Jake nodded. There were 5 Vorthak teenagers attending Tyler's high school. It was part of some big cultural program. The alien kids lived with host families and went to regular human schools. Tyler had mentioned them before, but never seemed too interested. "Well, there's this one. His name is HFY." Tyler pronounced the name carefully, like he'd been practicing. He's really cool, Dad. He's smart and funny, and he doesn't make fun of humans like some of the others do." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Some of them make fun of humans?" "Not in a mean way," Tyler said quickly. "More like how we might laugh at a little kid trying to do adult things. They think we're kind of cute and primitive." "Great," Jake muttered. "Cute and primitive. That's how I want to be remembered by our alien neighbors." Tyler grinned. "But HFY isn't like that. He actually thinks humans are amazing. He says we're brave and creative and... Anyway, that's not the point." "What is the point?" Tyler stopped, clicking the pen. He took a deep breath. "I want to ask him to the spring dance." Jake blinked. "The spring dance?" "Yeah. You know, the one next month. The big formal thing." Jake knew about the dance. He'd already written a check for Tyler's tuxedo rental. He'd assumed his son would ask Amy Chen, the girl he'd been talking about for months. Amy was nice, smart, and most importantly, human. "Tyler," Jake said carefully, "are you saying you want to ask an alien to the dance?" "He's not an alien, Dad. He's just different. Besides, we call them Vorthak now. It's more respectful." Jake rubbed his forehead. "Okay, you want to ask a Vorthak to the dance. Do you know what that involves?" Tyler's face fell. "That's the weird part I was talking about. I looked it up. Because HFY is under 18 and I'm under 18, and because we're different species, there have to be adult supervisors present for any social interaction." "Supervisors?" "Like parental supervision. The whole time." Tyler's cheeks turned red. "His guardian has to come, and you have to come, and you both have to stay the whole time to make sure nothing inappropriate happens." Jake stared at his son. "You're asking me to supervise your date?" "It's not a date," Tyler said quickly. "I mean, it is, but it's also not. It's like a supervised cultural exchange event that happens to involve dancing. Tyler, do you understand how awkward this is going to be?" "Extremely awkward," Tyler admitted. "But Dad, I really like him, and he likes me too, I think. We talk every day at school, and he's teaching me some Vorthak words, and I'm teaching him about human movies. He'd never seen a comedy before, can you believe that? A whole species that doesn't understand jokes." Jake looked at his son's hopeful face. Tyler had always been a good kid. He got decent grades, stayed out of trouble, and helped around the house without being asked. Since his mother died 5 years ago, Tyler had grown up fast. Maybe too fast. "What's his guardian like?" Jake asked. "I don't know. HFY doesn't talk about family much. I think it's a cultural thing. But whoever it is would have to meet with you first to discuss the arrangement." Jake imagined sitting in some sterile government office, shaking hands with a 7-foot-tall alien while discussing appropriate behavior for teenage interspecies romance. It sounded like the setup for a bad joke. "The whole evening?" Jake asked. "I have to stay the whole time?" "That's what the rules say. Both guardians have to be present for the entire event, and we have to meet beforehand to establish guidelines and boundaries." Jake drank his cold coffee and made a face. "This is going to be the most awkward thing I've ever done." "Does that mean yes?" Jake looked at Tyler's hopeful expression. His son had been through a lot. Losing his mother at 12 had been devastating. Then came the alien contact, the changes to society, the uncertainty about the future. Through it all, Tyler had stayed positive and adaptable. If this Vorthak kid made him happy, who was Jake to stand in the way? "Yeah," Jake said. "Yes. But I have conditions." Tyler's face lit up. "Anything. First, you're going to help me figure out how to act around aliens. I don't want to accidentally insult anyone or start an interstellar incident." "Deal. Second, if this guardian person seems dangerous or weird, the whole thing is off. That's fair. And third," Jake pointed at Tyler, "you're doing dishes for a month to pay me back for the therapy I'm going to need after this." Tyler laughed and jumped up to hug his father. "Thanks, Dad. You're the best." As Tyler ran upstairs to call HFY, Jake sat back down at his kitchen table. He looked at the alien tax forms and shook his head. 3 years ago, his biggest worry was whether Tyler would pass his driving test. Now he was agreeing to supervise his son's first interspecies date. The world had definitely gotten more complicated. But looking at Tyler's happiness, Jake thought maybe it had gotten a little better too. Even if it meant spending an evening making awkward small talk with an alien while watching teenagers dance. Jake picked up his phone to call his brother. Someone was going to have to explain to him how to shake hands with a Vorthak without offending anyone. This was going to be interesting. The Denver Cultural Center looked like something from a science fiction movie. Jake parked his truck in the lot and stared up at the building's smooth, curved walls. Everything was designed to be neutral and welcoming to both humans and aliens. The result was a structure that looked like nothing either species would build on their own. Tyler bounced in the passenger seat. "Come on, Dad, we're going to be late." Jake checked his watch. They were actually 15 minutes early, but Tyler had been nervous all week. The kid had changed clothes 3 times before settling on his best jeans and a button-down shirt. He'd even asked Jake to help him with his hair. "Remember what we practiced," Jake said as they walked toward the entrance. "Respectful greeting, no sudden movements, and let them initiate any physical contact." "I know, Dad. You've only told me 100 times. Jake had spent the last week reading everything he could find about Vorthak culture. The aliens were humanoid but taller than most humans, with longer limbs and slightly larger heads. Their skin had a blue-gray tint and their eyes were bigger and more expressive than human eyes. Most importantly, they valued respect, honesty, and family bonds. The cultural center's lobby was empty except for a human receptionist who smiled and pointed them toward conference room 3. Jake's palms were sweating. He'd faced enemy fire during his army days, but somehow this felt more terrifying. "Dad," Tyler whispered as they walked down the hallway. "What if they don't like me? What if HFY's guardian thinks humans are too primitive for their kid to hang around with?" "Then, that's their loss," Jake said. "You're a good kid, Tyler. Any parent would be lucky to have you interested in their child." They reached conference room 3. Through the glass door, Jake could see 2 figures sitting at a round table. One was clearly HFY, tall and slender with the characteristic blue-gray skin. The other was an adult Vorthak, presumably the guardian. Tyler knocked on the door. The adult Vorthak looked up and gestured for them to enter. Jake's first surprise was that HFY's guardian was clearly female. His second surprise was that she was beautiful, in an alien sort of way. She stood as they entered, and Jake was struck by her graceful movements and confident posture. "I am Commander Veltara," she said in accented but clear English. "I serve as Zexhi's guardian during his time on Earth." "Jake Morrison," Jake replied, extending his hand carefully. "And this is my son Tyler." Veltara looked at his outstretched hand for a moment, then clasped it firmly. Her skin was warm and slightly rough, like leather that had been worn smooth. "It is good to meet you both." Tyler stepped forward and performed the formal Vorthak greeting he'd been practicing. Slight bow with both hands pressed together. Zexhi's eyes widened with delight. "You learned the proper greeting," Zexhi said, his voice higher than his guardian's, but with the same accent. "Tyler, that is very respectful." "Zexhi taught me," Tyler said, grinning, "along with a bunch of other stuff." They all sat down at the round table. Jake found himself directly across from Veltara, which gave him a chance to study her face. Her features were sharper than human features, but there was something familiar about her expression. She looked like someone trying to figure out a difficult problem. "So," Jake said, "I guess we should talk about the dance." "Yes," Veltara nodded. "I must admit, I am not familiar with human social customs involving young people. Zexhi has explained this dance to me, but I am still unclear about what exactly will happen." Tyler and Zexhi exchanged glances. "It's basically a big party," Tyler explained. "There's music, dancing, food, and decorations. Everyone dresses up fancy and has fun." "And the adult supervision?" Veltara asked. Jake cleared his throat. "According to the guidelines, we both need to be present the entire time. We can sit at a table and watch, but we need to be visible and available if any issues arise." "Issues?" Veltara's eyes narrowed slightly. "What kind of issues?" "Cultural misunderstandings, mostly," Jake said. "Or if someone has too much punch and starts saying stupid things about aliens. Some people still aren't comfortable with the whole coexistence thing." Veltara nodded slowly. "Yes, we have encountered such attitudes. Some humans view us with suspicion or fear. Some Vorthak think humans are cute pets," Tyler added. Zexhi elbowed him gently. "That is not entirely inaccurate," Veltara admitted, with what might have been a smile. "Many of my people do find humans endearing. Your emotional expressions are very obvious compared to ours." Jake felt his face heat up. "Endearing?" "In a positive way," Veltara said quickly. "Humans are very honest with their feelings. It is refreshing." They spent the next hour going over the details. The dance would be held in the school gymnasium, starting at 7 and ending at 11. Both guardians would sit at a designated table near the dance floor. Tyler and Zexhi would check in with them every hour. "What about dancing?" Tyler asked. "Are we allowed to actually dance together?" Veltara looked thoughtful. "What does this dancing involve?" Tyler demonstrated a few simple moves which made Zexhi laugh. "It's just moving to the music," Tyler explained. "Sometimes you dance close to your partner, sometimes far apart. It depends on the song." "Close how?" Veltara asked. Tyler's face turned red. "Like holding hands or putting your arms around each other's waist. Nothing inappropriate." Veltara looked at Jake. "Is this acceptable by human standards?" "For teenagers at a school dance, yeah, that's normal," Jake said. "Though I reserve the right to embarrass my son if things get too romantic." "Dad," Tyler protested. "That is also normal by Vorthak standards," Veltara said. "Parents are expected to maintain appropriate boundaries for their young." Jake found himself relaxing slightly. Veltara seemed reasonable and practical. More importantly, she clearly cared about Zexhi's well-being just as much as Jake cared about Tyler's. "I have one question," Veltara said. "Why did you agree to this arrangement? Many human parents would refuse to allow their child to socialize with a Vorthak." Jake looked at Tyler, who was showing Zexhi something on his phone. Both boys were laughing at whatever was on the screen. "Because it makes him happy," Jake said simply. "And because I think getting to know other species is important for both our kids." "You are not concerned about cultural contamination?" "Are you?" Veltara considered this. I was initially. But HFY has learned much from human culture. He has become more expressive, more willing to show emotion. These are not bad changes. Tyler's learned a lot too, Jake said. Patience, respect, for other viewpoints, how to see beyond surface differences. I think they're good for each other. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion in the hallway, shouting voices and the sound of running feet. Through the glass door, Jake could see people moving quickly past the conference room. What's happening? Tyler asked, looking up from his phone. The building's emergency alert system activated with a loud beep. A calm voice announced, "Attention all occupants. Please remain in your current location. Security is responding to a situation in the main lobby. This is not a drill." Veltara stood up immediately, her posture shifting into something more military. "Commander training," she explained to Jake's questioning look. "I need to assess the threat level." Jake stood too. His own military instincts were kicking in. "Kids, stay here, lock the door behind us." "But Dad," Tyler started. "No arguments. Keep HFY safe." Jake and Veltara moved toward the door. Through the glass, they could see security guards running toward the lobby. Someone was shouting about alien sympathizers and protecting human purity. "Protesters," Jake said grimly. "Probably the Human First group. They've been making noise about the cultural centers." Veltara's expression hardened. "Are they dangerous?" "Potentially. They haven't been violent yet, but there's always a first time." They stepped into the hallway. Jake could hear angry voices from the lobby, along with the calm but firm responses of security personnel. It sounded like the situation was contained, but both parents stayed alert. "Thank you," Veltara said quietly. "For what? For caring about HFY's safety as much as your own son's?" Jake looked at her serious expression and felt something shift in his chest. Any parent would do the same. "No," Veltara said. "Not any parent. But you did." The emergency announcement came again, this time declaring the situation resolved. Jake and Veltara returned to the conference room where they found Tyler and HFY huddled together, looking worried. "Is everything okay?" Tyler asked. "Just some protesters," Jake said. "Nothing to worry about." But as he looked at Veltara's concerned expression, Jake realized that everything had changed. This wasn't just about supervising a teenage date anymore. This was about protecting both their children in a world that wasn't always ready for the changes happening around them. And somehow, he was looking forward to working with Veltara to make sure both kids stayed safe. 2 weeks after the incident at the Cultural Center, Jake found himself sitting in a sterile government office across from Veltara. Between them lay a stack of papers 3 inches thick, the proposed new safety protocols for interspecies youth interactions. "This is ridiculous," Jake said, flipping through page after page of bureaucratic language. "Listen to this. All recreational activities between human and Vorthak minors must be pre-approved by a joint committee consisting of no fewer than 6 representatives from each species." Veltara looked up from her own copy. 6 representatives to approve a movie date. My people love committees, but even this seems excessive." Jake was surprised by her dry humor. Over the past 2 weeks, working together on these protocols, he'd learned that Veltara was not what he'd expected from a military commander. She was practical, intelligent, and had a subtle sense of humor that only came out when she was relaxed. "How about this one?" Veltara said. "Any physical contact between species must be documented and reported within 24 hours. Should I file a report every time HFY high-fives Tyler?" "Don't give them ideas," Jake muttered. They'd been asked to collaborate on these new protocols after the protest incident. Apparently, Jake's quick thinking and Veltara's military expertise had impressed someone important. The problem was that the current draft had been written by people who'd never actually spent time with teenagers. "Look," Jake said, leaning back, in his chair. "I was in the Army for 8 years. I understand the need for rules and procedures, but these protocols treat our kids like they're dangerous weapons instead of teenagers who want to go to a dance." "Agreed. In Vorthak military, we have a saying, A rule that cannot be followed will not be followed. These rules are so complex that no one will bother to comply. Jake nodded. That was exactly the problem. So what do? We write better rules, Veltara said simply. Rules that actually work. They spent the next 3 hours completely rewriting the protocols. Jake contributed his knowledge of human teenage behavior and practical safety concerns. Veltara added her understanding of Vorthak customs and her military experience with risk assessment. Working together, they created something that actually made sense. Instead of requiring 6 committee members to approve every activity, they established a simple pre-approval process for common social events. Instead of documenting every high five, they focused on meaningful interactions that might cause cultural misunderstandings. You know, Jake said as they finished the last section, this is actually kind of fun. Writing government protocols is fun. Veltara raised an eyebrow in what Jake had learned was the Vorthak equivalent of a skeptical expression. Working with someone who actually gets it is fun, Jake clarified. Most people either want to ban all alien contact or pretend there aren't any real differences between species. You understand that we need balance. Veltara was quiet for a moment. You also understand balance. Many humans I've met are either afraid of us or think we are just strange-looking humans. You see us as different but equal. Jake felt heat rise in his cheeks. Well, you are different. But different isn't bad. No, Veltara agreed. Different can be quite good. Their eyes met across the table and Jake felt something electric pass between them. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Jake's phone buzzed with a text from Tyler breaking the spell. The boys want to know if they can go see a movie this weekend, Jake said, reading the message. Tyler says they'll follow all the new protocols. We're writing. Which protocols? We have not finished them yet. I think he's being optimistic about our progress. Veltara almost smiled. HFY has been equally eager. He asks every day when the formal courtship procedures will be complete. Formal courtship procedures? That is how he describes dating. Vorthak young people do not typically engage in romantic relationships until they are older, so he lacks the proper vocabulary. Jake laughed. Tyler just calls it hanging out with HFY. Human teenagers are masters of making everything sound casual. Perhaps that is why they work well together. Tyler helps HFY be more relaxed, and HFY helps Tyler be more thoughtful. You've been watching them pretty closely. As have you, Veltara pointed out. Good parents pay attention. Jake studied her face. Are you HFY's mother? No. I am his. The English word is aunt, though the relationship is more complex in Vorthak families. His parents were killed in an accident when he was young. I have raised him since then. I'm sorry for your loss. And I am sorry for yours. Tyler mentioned that his mother died. Jake was surprised. He told HFY about Sarah? HFY was curious about human family structures. Tyler explained that many human children live with only one parent, and shared his own experience. HFY found this comforting, as he too has lost parents. Jake felt a tightness in his chest. Tyler rarely talked about his mother, even with Jake. The fact that he'd opened up to HFY about it showed how much their friendship meant to him. It's been hard, Jake admitted. Raising a teenager alone, especially with all the changes in the world recently. Yes, I worry constantly that I'm making mistakes. Vorthak children traditionally have many adult relatives involved in their upbringing. Here it is just me. You're doing a good job. HFY is a great kid. Tyler is also exceptional. You should be proud. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Jake found himself thinking about how easy it was to talk to Veltara. She didn't judge him for his uncertainties about parenting, and she seemed to understand the weight of raising someone else's child. Can I ask you something? Jake said. Of course. What made you agree to let HFY come to Earth? This exchange program can't be easy for Guardian families. Veltara considered her answer carefully. HFY was becoming isolated on our homeworld. He was always the child with no parents, the one who was different. Here, many children have unusual family situations. He fits in better. And you? What's it like for you being on Earth? Lonely sometimes, Veltara admitted. I miss my own culture, my own people. But seeing HFY happy makes it worthwhile. And lately it has been less lonely. Jake felt that electric feeling again. He was pretty sure Veltara was talking about more than just getting used to human culture. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a picture from Tyler, him and HFY at the school cafeteria, both making ridiculous faces at the camera. HFY was attempting what looked like a human smile, while Tyler was trying to copy some Vorthak facial expression. Look at this, Jake said, showing Veltara the picture. Veltara's expression softened. They are good for each other. Yeah, they are. Jake paused. You know, maybe we should approve that movie request. We've written enough protocols that we can probably supervise one movie without causing an international incident. You would be willing to spend another evening watching our children? I think I could manage it. Jake hesitated, then added, besides, someone needs to make sure you understand human movie theater etiquette. There is etiquette for watching movies? Oh, yes, very important stuff. When to buy popcorn, how to share armrests, what to do if someone talks during the film. Veltara laughed, an actual genuine laugh that transformed her whole face. I see. And you would be willing to teach me these customs? It would be my pleasure. As they packed up their papers and prepared to leave, Jake realized that somewhere, between rewriting government protocols and sharing stories about their children, his feelings about Veltara had changed completely. She wasn't just HFY's guardian anymore, or even just a colleague. She was becoming something more. The question was whether she felt the same way, and whether two single parents from different species could figure out how to navigate their own relationship while helping their kids do the same. Jake, Veltara said as they reached the parking lot. Yeah? Thank you for helping with the protocols and for being patient with our cultural differences. Thank you for being someone worth working with. Veltara tilted her head slightly. A gesture Jake had learned meant she was thinking about something important. Perhaps we should schedule regular meetings to review how the new protocols are working. Regular meetings? Yes, to ensure proper implementation and address any issues that arise. Jake grinned. That sounds very professional. I am always professional, Veltara said with mock seriousness. Then more quietly, but perhaps these meetings could also be educational, about human and Vorthak customs. Educational. I like that. As Jake drove home, he found himself looking forward to their next professional meeting. Tyler was going to be thrilled that the movie plan was approved, but Jake suspected his own reasons for wanting to see Veltara again had very little to do with parental supervision. For the first time since Sarah's death, Jake was interested in someone, and that someone happened to be an alien single parent who understood exactly what his life was like. It was complicated, certainly, but maybe complicated didn't have to mean impossible. Jake was fixing his morning coffee when his phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and smiled. Veltara had started calling him every few days to discuss their children's activities, though their conversations usually wandered into other topics. Good morning, he answered. Jake? Veltara's voice was strained, not at all like her usual calm tone. We need to talk. Can you meet me at the cultural center? Is everything okay? Are the kids all right? The children are fine, but... She paused. Just please come. As soon as you can. An hour later, Jake found Veltara in the same conference room where they'd first met. She looked tired and worried, her usual confident posture replaced by something that looked almost like defeat. What's wrong? Jake asked, sitting across from her. The Vorthak High Council has ordered all exchange students to return home immediately, Veltara said without preamble. The program is being suspended indefinitely. Jake felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. What? Why? There is a faction within our government that believes human culture is having too much influence on our young people. They are concerned about what they call cultural contamination. Cultural contamination? Veltara rubbed her forehead. They point to students like HFY who have become more emotional, more expressive. They say this is not the Vorthak way. But that's good, isn't it? He's happier here. You and I believe that. But the council sees it as weakness. They want our young people to remain traditional, disciplined, focused on duty rather than personal desires. Jake sat back in his chair, trying to process this. When? The transport ships arrive in 1 week. All students must be ready to depart. 1 week. Jake thought about Tyler, about how devastated he would be. And there's nothing we can do? I have been ordered to prepare HFY for departure and to enforce the council's decision. Veltara's voice was bitter. As his guardian and as a military officer, I am expected to comply without question. But you don't want to. Of course, I do not want to. HFY has found happiness here. He has friends, interests, a life he enjoys. Taking him away from that feels like punishment for succeeding too well at cultural exchange. Jake studied her face. There's something else, isn't there? Veltara was quiet for a long moment. The council also reviewed reports of my own activities here, my collaboration with humans, my adaptation to Earth customs. They are concerned about my own cultural contamination. What does that mean? It means they question whether I am still fit to represent Vorthak interests, whether I have become too influenced by human emotions and values. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. That's ridiculous. You've been nothing but professional and dedicated to both species' well-being. But I have also become personally involved with humans in ways that go beyond professional duty. Veltara met his eyes. They are not wrong about that. The words hung between them. Jake realized she was talking about their growing relationship, the feelings that had developed over their weeks of working together. Veltara, I care about you, Jake, more than I should according to my people's expectations, and that compromises my ability to serve Vorthak interests objectively. Jake reached across the table and took her hand. Her skin was warm, familiar now after weeks of brief touches during their meetings. Caring about someone doesn't make you compromised, it makes you human. But I am not human. That is the problem. They sat in silence, holding hands across the conference table. Jake's mind was racing, trying to think of solutions. There had to be something they could do. What if we could prove that the exchange program is beneficial to both species, he asked. What if we could show the council that cultural exchange makes everyone stronger, not weaker? How would we do that? I don't know yet, but there has to be evidence, research, statistics, something that shows the positive outcomes. Veltara shook her head. The council's decision is based on ideology, not evidence. They believe that maintaining pure Vorthak culture is more important than any potential benefits of exchange. Then we change their ideology. You cannot simply change the minds of the Vorthak High Council. Maybe I can't, Jake said. But maybe we can. Over the next 3 days, Jake threw himself into research. He contacted everyone he could think of, other parents in the exchange program, teachers at Tyler's school, researchers studying interspecies relations. He collected data on academic performance, social development, and psychological well-being of both human and Vorthak students in the program. The results were impressive. Exchange students showed higher levels of creativity, problem-solving ability, and cultural adaptability. They were more confident, more curious, and more prepared for the increasingly interconnected galactic community. Veltara helped by providing access to Vorthak educational records and cultural assessments. Working together, they built a compelling case for continuing the program. Look at this, Jake said, showing her the latest report. Vorthak exchange students scored 23% higher on innovation tests than their peers who stayed home. Human students show 31% improvement in logical reasoning and strategic thinking. These are impressive numbers, Veltara agreed. But will they be enough? They have to be, because I've got an idea for how to present them. Jake's idea was bold, maybe even crazy. Instead of simply submitting a report to the Vorthak Council, he wanted to request a formal hearing. They would present their case in person, with Tyler and HFY as examples of successful cultural exchange. You want to address the Vorthak High Council directly? Veltara looked shocked. Jake, they rarely grant audiences to their own people, let alone humans. Then we make them understand that this affects their people too. We request the hearing through official diplomatic channels as a matter of interspecies cooperation. And if they refuse, then at least we tried everything. That evening, Jake sat Tyler down for one of the hardest conversations of his life. He explained the situation, watching his son's face crumble as he realized what was happening. But they can't. Just take him away, Tyler said. HFY doesn't want to go. His grades are good. He's not causing any trouble. I know, buddy. That's why we're going to fight this. Jake explained their plan. Tyler listened with growing excitement, then determination. What can I do to help? Tyler asked. Just be yourself. If we get this hearing, you and HFY will be our best argument for why the program should continue. Meanwhile, Veltara was having her own difficult conversation with HFY. The young Vorthek was devastated by the news, but also confused about why his own people would see his happiness as a problem. I do not understand, he told Veltara. I am still Vorthek. I still honor our traditions and values. But I have also learned to appreciate human customs. Why is this wrong? It is not wrong, Veltara assured him. Some of our people are afraid of change, afraid that learning from other species will make us less ourselves. But learning from humans has made me more myself, not less. I understand my own emotions better now. I am more confident, more curious about the galaxy. Veltara realized that HFY had just summarized their entire argument in a few simple sentences. Change wasn't destroying Vorthak identity. It was enhancing it. 3 days later, Jake got the call he'd been hoping for. The Vorthak Council had agreed to hear their presentation. They would have 1 hour to make their case for continuing the exchange program. 1 hour to save both their kids' happiness and their own growing relationship. Are you ready for this? Jake asked Veltara as they prepared their presentation materials. No, she admitted, but I am ready to try. Good, because I've got one more idea that might help our case. What kind of idea? Jake grinned. The kind that could either save the program or get us both in serious trouble with 2 different governments. Veltara looked at his expression and sighed. Why do I suspect that working with humans has been a bad influence on my decision-making abilities? Because it has. But isn't that exactly the point we're trying to make? Despite everything, Veltara laughed. Yes, I suppose it is. The hearing was set for the following Monday. 4 days to prepare the most important presentation of their lives. 4 days to prove that love, whether between friends, family members, or potential romantic partners, could bridge any gap between species. 4 days to show that being changed by other cultures didn't make you less yourself. It made you more than you ever thought you could be. The Galactic Council chambers were more intimidating than Jake had imagined. The circular room seemed to stretch upward forever, with representatives from dozens of species seated in ascending rows. At the center, 5 massive chairs held the Vorthak High Council members, their blue-gray faces impassive as they studied the humans below. Jake stood at a small podium with Veltara beside him. Behind them, Tyler and HFY sat quietly, both dressed in their best clothes and trying not to look nervous. The weight of their future hung in the air. You have requested this hearing to contest our decision regarding the exchange program, the Center Council member said. Her voice echoed in the chamber. You have 1 hour to present your case. Jake stepped forward. His hands were shaking slightly, but his voice was steady. Honored council members, we're here because we believe the exchange program represents the best of both our species. We're not asking you to abandon Vorthak values. We're asking you to see how those values can be strengthened through cultural exchange. He activated the holographic display they'd prepared. Charts and graphs filled the air above them, showing the academic and social improvements of exchange students. These numbers tell an important story, Jake continued. Vorthak students in the exchange program don't lose their cultural identity. They enhance it, they become better problem solvers, more creative thinkers, more adaptable leaders. One of the council members leaned forward. But they also become more emotional, more individualistic. These are not Vorthak traits. With respect, Veltara said, stepping up to join Jake. Emotions and individual expression have always been part of Vorthak nature. We have simply been taught to suppress them. The exchange students are not becoming less Vorthak. They are becoming more complete. The council members exchanged glances. Jake could see they weren't entirely convinced. May I share a personal example? Jake asked. The center council member nodded. My son Tyler was shy before meeting Zexhai. He struggled with confidence and expressing his thoughts. Through their friendship, Tyler has learned patience, respect for different perspectives, and the value of thinking before speaking. These are lessons that will serve him his entire life. Jake paused, then looked directly at Zexhai. And Zexhai has learned that it's okay to show joy, to laugh, to express wonder at the world around him. He's still respectful, still dedicated to learning and growth. But he's also happy in a way that makes him want to share that happiness with others. Tyler Morrison and Zexhai, please approach, the center council member commanded. The two teenagers walked forward, holding hands for support. Jake felt proud of how composed they looked despite the circumstances. Zexhai, the council member said, you have lived among humans for nearly a year. Do you still consider yourself Vorthak? Yes, honored council member. Zexhai replied clearly. I am Vorthak in my core values, my respect for knowledge and family, my dedication to serving the greater good. But I am also enhanced by human friendship, by learning their capacity for emotional expression and creative problem solving. And you, Tyler Morrison, what have you learned from this Vorthak? Tyler took a deep breath. I've learned that being smart doesn't mean you can't also be kind. That thinking carefully before you act isn't the same as being afraid to act, and that friendship doesn't require you to be exactly the same as someone else. The council members conferred quietly among themselves. Jake couldn't hear their words, but their expressions suggested disagreement. Finally, the center member spoke, again. Your academic data is impressive, but our concern is broader than test scores. We worry about the long-term impact on Vorthak society if our young people adopt human emotional patterns. This was the moment Jake had been preparing for. His secret weapon, the idea that could either save them or destroy their case completely. Honored Council, Jake said, what if I told you that Vorthak influence has equally changed human participants? What if the real benefit isn't that our species are becoming more alike, but that they're becoming better versions of themselves, here? Activated a new set of data. Human exchange students show remarkable improvements in logical reasoning, strategic thinking, and emotional control. They're learning Vorthak discipline and respect for knowledge, but they're still fundamentally human. Jake paused for effect. The fear of cultural contamination assumes that exposure to other ideas weakens your own culture. But our data suggests the opposite. When young people understand and appreciate other ways of thinking, they become more confident in their own identity, not less. You speak of data, another council member said. But what of practical examples? Can you show us adults who have successfully navigated interspecies cooperation? Jake looked at Veltara. This was the moment of truth. Yes, Jake said. We can. He turned to face the council directly. Commander Veltara and I have spent months working together on cultural protocols and safety guidelines. In that time, we've learned to appreciate each other's strengths and compensate for each other's weaknesses. Veltara stepped forward. Jake Morrison has taught me the value of flexibility and emotional intelligence in problem solving. I have shared with him the importance of strategic thinking and long-term planning. Together, we have created policies that serve both species better than either could have managed alone. And personally, the center council member asked, what has this collaboration taught you about human Vorthak relations? Jake felt his heart racing. Everything depended on the next few words. It has taught me that love and respect can exist between any two beings who share common values, Jake said. Veltara and I care deeply for each other, not despite our species' differences, but because of the unique perspectives those differences bring to our relationship. A murmur ran through the chamber. Jake could see shock and surprise on many faces. You are claiming a romantic attachment to this human? The council member asked Veltara. I am, Veltara replied firmly. Jake Morrison is an honorable man, a devoted father, and someone whose values align with the best of Vorthak tradition. Our relationship has made both of us better people and better parents. The council members engaged in heated discussion. Jake couldn't understand their words, but their body language suggested significant disagreement. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the center member called for order. This is highly irregular, she announced. We came here expecting to discuss educational policy, not interspecies romance. With respect, Veltara said. Is that not exactly the point? Real cultural exchange cannot be limited to classrooms and formal programs. It happens when people of different species learn to see each other as individuals worthy of friendship, respect, and yes, even love. Tyler and Zexhai exchanged glances. Then Tyler stepped forward. Honored council members, he said, his voice stronger than Jake had ever heard it. Zexhai and I didn't plan to become best friends. We just got to know each other as people. And when you know someone as a person instead of as an alien, you realize that friendship is possible with anyone who shares your values. Zexhai nodded. Tyler taught me that showing emotion does not make you weak. It makes you honest. And I taught Tyler that thinking before you act does not make you slow. It makes you wise. We are both better because of our friendship. The center council member looked at Jake. You would risk your reputation, your career, your social standing for this program? I would risk all of that for my son's happiness, Jake replied. But honestly, I don't think it's a risk anymore. I think it's an investment in a future where our species can work together to solve problems neither could handle alone. The council deliberated for another hour while Jake, Veltara, and the boys waited in a small antechamber. Jake paced nervously while Veltara sat calmly, though he could see the tension in her posture. Whatever happens, Jake said quietly, I'm glad we tried. As am I, Veltara replied. And Jake, regardless of the council's decision, I meant what I said in there. About us? About us. Jake took her hand, not caring who might see. Good. Because so did I. Finally, they were called back into the chamber. The center council member stood to deliver the verdict. The Vorthak High Council has reached a decision regarding the exchange program, she announced. After reviewing your evidence and considering your arguments, we have voted to not only continue the program, but to expand it significantly. Jake felt his knees nearly buckle with relief. Tyler and Zexhai grabbed each other in a fierce hug. However, the council member continued, this expansion comes with new guidelines. Adult supervision will be increased, cultural education will be mandatory for all participants, and regular assessments will ensure that cultural exchange enhances rather than replaces traditional values. We accept those conditions gladly, Veltara said. Furthermore, the council member said, looking directly at Jake and Veltara, we are establishing a new position, interspecies cultural liaison. This role will require one human and one Vorthak to work together in developing and overseeing exchange programs throughout the galaxy. Jake and Veltara exchanged glances. We would like to offer this position to Jake Morrison and Commander Veltara, should they be willing to continue their collaboration on a permanent basis. We accept, Jake said immediately. Excellent. The position comes with housing provided on both Earth and the Vorthak,